Soundstripe.
Hi, I'm SJ.
And I'm Pegsy.
Welcome to our Heels in the Hierarchy podcast, where we discuss the experiences and challenges faced by aspiring women in the workplace.
We'll share insights to help you gain new perspectives, practical strategies and reassurance. We'll also bring in occasional guests who share their stories and reveal that behind the polished exterior, even accomplished women face challenges just like yours.
We hope you'll laugh, learn and enjoy different perspectives around women in work and leadership. So step inside an episode of Heels in the Hierarchy, empowering women
without stepping on toes. We are delighted to have Audrey with us. Audrey and I knew each other from several years ago, from when we were relatively early in our careers. Audrey is an assistant associate head in a large local comprehensive school.
That's correct. Well, apart from associate assistant head.
Associate assistant head.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Can I be nosy and ask what that actually means?
What it actually means is that we have the leadership at school is assistant heads, deputy heads, and then a head teacher. And then they will bring in an associate who's on the same sort of pay scale and everything, but it isn't a permanent job. And they will bring them in to do sort of specific projects. So I had a specific project that I came in to do, and it's normally for a year. But then what's happened is they kept me on for a second year, and then they kept me on for a third year, and now I'm just about to be kept on for a fourth year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And how long have you been doing that? How long have you been in teaching? Because when you and I met each other, you weren't in teaching. We were both in administration for a local company, weren't we?
Yeah, that's the case. So I went back and got my degree when I was 40, and then I went and did a year's teacher training. So I've actually been teaching for 14 years now.
Oh, wow. Wow. And was that, because we knew each other when we were both administrators, that's the starting point of my knowledge of you. And I can't say that I was necessarily surprised that you wanted to go into teaching, other than the fact that you'd never really shared it with us before that I can remember. So the surprise didn't come in you having career aspirations, but what you then chose to be your career, because my recollection is that you didn't ever voice that. So if we can start then with perhaps just a quick touch on almost like what you wanted to be when you grew up, and then what it was during your early career as an administrator, and then the decision then to set a different career path, because I think that happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. I think that growing up, I never really knew what I wanted to be. I didn't particularly feel that I was good enough to be a teacher. So even as I saw some of my friends become teachers and I thought, I really fancy that, I never thought that I would be good enough to be a teacher. So I really did keep that to myself. So that's probably why you didn't know about it. Even when I went back and did my A-levels, I didn't tell my husband at the time that I was going to do A-levels, because I didn't want to be seen to fail the A-levels. So that was a bit, I kept that from him for a little while. I didn't have a GCSE in science, which I knew I needed to be a primary school teacher. And I never even considered that I would be a secondary school teacher, because I didn't think I was capable of being that. So it was all very much quite organic, the way it became, that I moved into secondary education. It wasn't sort of something that I'd always thought, yes, I'm going to do that. I just never thought I would be able to do it.
Was that a slow burning sort of career aspiration / career change? You said you watched friends of yours who were teachers. So was it after a while, as you say, you just sort of thought, I can do that? Or was there perhaps something quite deep-seated that...
I think what actually happened was I looked at the people that I knew that became teachers, and after a while I thought, well, I got a first-class degree. I did quite well at school, despite lots of stuff going on in my life at the time. And it just gradually dawned on me that maybe I could. And I look at my career in teaching. I mean, I started off as a teaching assistant because I thought that was probably what I could do. And then, went and trained to be a teacher. And each step of my career has been accidental, if you like. It's been a job came up. Oh, I'll go for that. I don't suppose I'll get it. I got it. Another job, someone said, why don't you go for that? And I thought, oh, okay, but I won't get it. And I got it, and gradually moved up that way. So there was nothing really structured. I'm not one of these go-getters. I'm going to, seek that out. But I think that's got a lot to do with my childhood.
But it does say a lot about your commitment to yourself. So although you're saying like I didn't believe it, when you're talking, I'm so curious to go, well, you kept going. You kept going back to I'll try. Do you know, that internal grit that we have as women about actually let's try and see what's happened and then keep going to that. And there's a lot to be said about not preventing our own fears from trying it anyway.
Absolutely.
And finding it out. And
Absolutely.
I think that's quite a difficult thing to kind of overcome all the time, isn't it? I'm not sure.
It definitely is. And I think in teaching, what I've really noticed is that, you know, the middle leadership are mainly women. So the heads of departments are all women. So women do rise to leadership roles. But then when you get above that, it's mainly men. The vast majority, I think there's 21% of head teachers in Hertfordshire are female, despite there being something like 70% of all teachers are female. So it's a really low percentage.
Wow.
Yeah. But what I have noticed is I have become more confident because now I am on the leadership team. I do look around and think, yeah, I have actually got a place at this table and I am worthy of being in this role.
Has it made you want to be able to look out for other people?
Very much so.
And
yeah,
I suppose like sometimes when you're talking, and I'm probably jumping ahead here, but it does make, you know, when you go through your own adversities of doubting yourself and thinking you're not going to do it. And when we're introducing it, obviously, you know, a lot of listeners go, wow, that's a massive achievement. And we don't give ourselves credit for the fact that we've had to actually just keep going for it. What's your thinking around now you're kind of in the position that you are about the people that you would, I suppose, give advice to? Is there a gap for that kind of mentorship side of things?
No, absolutely. And that is something that I'm really, really passionate about. So I do line manage some female heads of department. So that's my first thing that I will always say to them. Have you thought about going into SLT if a job came up? And they're all very much, no, I couldn't do that. So I'm very much, will try doing this. And I've sort of recommended them to go on courses and things like that. So I think I really do feel strongly about encouraging females to reach that a little bit further. We started a women's leadership group at school. So it was just like a lunchtime group just to chat around things that they felt might hold them back in school and, you know, what they could do to overcome those difficulties. So yeah, I do feel really strongly that women they have just got something internal that tells them they haven't got a place at that table, and they absolutely have. And the female leaders I find are so much, I don't know if I can say this, but I just think they're better than the men. They're so much more dedicated. They're not relying on their maleness to get them through things. They're just more empathetic all the way along. So I feel really strongly that females are fantastic leaders. And I went on a conference a little while ago, and it was, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the lady, Baroness Sue, I can't remember her name. She took over the British female football team and sort of took them to where they are now. And she was just really, everything she said really resonated with me. And it was the same thing that females were not good at negotiating. We're not good at blowing our own trumpet, but we are great leaders. You know, we need to get over that sort of part of it.
Yeah.
I think it's something to do with the ego, though. You know,
absolutely.
We don't have the same ego that potentially what we're witnessing within men and how they kind of do it. And this is, you know, we're very open about, you know, our conversations very much around we trip ourselves up, we get in our own way, and part of this is having those conversations to go, we don't want this to continue for the next generation.
Absolutely.
You know, we don't want this to keep going. But it's amazing that you're having conversations in your workplace and you're noticing people and you're helping people to do that, because there's like sometimes people don't notice their own talent, or they may, you know, think about it, but again they don't vocalize it. And it just made me think, what was that like, not being able to really vocalize or own what you really want to do?
Well, I suppose when you're in that situation, you don't think too deeply about it. It's only sort of with hindsight I look back and think, what, you know, why on earth did I feel like that? Why did I hold myself back? Why did I wait so many years before I took the leap and did something that I'm quite good at? So at the time, I think it just felt like just another little hurdle. I'll just chip away at it. I will go and do my A-levels and then we'll see what happens. And I'll go, I'm going to go and do a degree, see what happens. And it is interesting. People say to me, oh, you must be so proud. You must be so. And I think, no, I really don't have that kind of in me to feel proud. I think I'm not again, not about blowing my own trumpet, which is, something that I think is typical of females.
But I think that's interesting, your insight about pride as well, because often we get a sense of pride in something, or it's more easy to have a sense of pride in something that you say, I thought I could do it and I did. But, listening to what you're saying, it took a long time for you to actually believe that you had done it after you'd done it not once, not twice, but multiple times.
Yeah.
So it wasn't kind of like, I was really proud to get my first A level. My reading of it is that it took you years in a profession that you had qualified for sometime previously before you really felt that you had a sense of pride in what you'd achieved.
Absolutely. And I look back and think, gosh, right. So I went back and I'd got children. I got 4 children, and then I went to evening classes and I did A levels in a year, and I got an A and a B grade, which is great. And then, I knew I wanted to get a first class degree. So I did all these extra lessons and sort of worked around that and did all these things. And I'm quite happy to talk about that to other people. And I'll tell the students at school, you can do this. I did it when I got 4 children and this, that, and you don't want to miss out the university years the way I did. And I'm quite happy to use it as a tool to encourage others. But I don't feel like, didn't I do well? I'll tell others I did well because I want to encourage them. But I don't know whether that's just an upbringing of a female, just being kept quiet and having your voice a little bit quieter than a male.
Maybe that's that journey still got to come.
Maybe it has.
Just sitting with, being able to own not the outcome, but just the journey of your own perseverance and your own. It's not other people being able to encourage. It's your own internal voice that's been doing that. And I know myself, sometimes we don't allow other people's voices to get it because we're always our worst critic, right? So we're always pushing ourselves forward because without innately knowing, we're trying to be our worst critic and trying to do something. But also when you've got a family, you also got a drive. So you've got a very high drive, but because you've got a high drive, it sounds like you just keep going.
Yeah.
And when absolutely. You keep going, you're not taking time to mark those moments.
Yeah.
And I know like in therapy, we're always so bounded about you need to take time to mark it, but it has to be in the right season. Because otherwise what happens is that we're so busy doing and, it sounds like you're inspiring others, you're wanting to use your experience. But even talking sometimes can be a mask that actually we need your own space to take back. But when life is so busy, and as women, we're always having different plates that we always having to kind of do. And it sounds like you've got a lot of other plates.
Yeah.
We have different roles and hats that we play, but there's no space for that.
No,
so I don't feel like,
true.
I think sometimes it is about encouraging others to go and take some time. But people think time's the issue. It's actually sometimes difficult to sit with our own feelings and sitting with it and going, I did that.
Yeah.
I should be proud of myself. But maybe that season's not here yet.
Yeah. I don't know when it will be though, because I think time's marching on. and it's you think like when I had my children, I think, well, my mum was a support to me. But then as you get older, my children still need me. My mum now needs me. So it doesn't look like at any time soon that time for reflection. And I don't see when that's going to happen. But,
You said you started your sort of almost like educational journey with doing your A levels, but that you actually didn't share that you were doing those with your then husband. So talk to me about the practicalities of doing that. Did you go to evening classes?
Yeah.
What did you do about your homework?
Yeah. It didn't take. It wasn't like I didn't spend the whole year keeping it hidden.
Oh, okay.
I mean, all of my applications, and then you had to go over and have an interview. And then I thought, I'll just do the first couple of weeks before I tell him. So it was just, it was an evening class. So I probably just said I was going out with some mates tonight or something.
Oh, right.
Just went out armed with a load of books. But I think that. It wasn't that long ago, I suppose, but it was very much, I was a mum. We had a family business and I was expected to do work in the family business, do the bookkeeping, which I absolutely hated. So that was my role. And I knew he wouldn't be very happy about me branching out. And so I wanted to make sure I was actually doing something that I really wanted to do before I broke the news, which I knew was going to be maybe not taken quite so well.
And when you started to share the news more widely among your wider family and friends, what were the reactions there?
Oh, wow, yeah, why have you waited so long? And, oh, I can really see you doing that. I mean, nobody said, what on earth are you thinking? You'll never do that. Because, yeah, I suppose other people can see things in you that you can't necessarily see in yourself. And as I say, it was primary school that I was aiming for at that time. And my friend that was a secondary school teacher said, oh, only one thing, why not go and do secondary school? I think that'll be more challenging for you. And, your love of literature, you'll be, that will be perfect for you. So other people could see things in me that I couldn't necessarily see in myself. Mm-hmm. And I still find that, like I say, when I line manage people and they're very sort of, even if they seem outwardly very confident, they are still inwardly, they haven't got that inner confidence that, you might expect them to have.
You moved on to doing a degree. Was that full-time or part-time?
No, that was a part-time degree. So it took me 4 years, but a part-time degree is still quite time consuming when you've got children as well. So yeah, but I think I went over 8 hours a week or something to the university, and yeah, did a lot of work reading books a week or something.
Did that have any financial implications as well? Because you'd got the practical implications of having a family and 4 quite young children that, as you say, needed you a lot of the time. And as you say, your mum was giving you a lot of support. But even then, even with our parents, we sometimes worry about asking too much of them. So we don't necessarily ask for as much help as we need. But the time implications and the financial implications.
Well, yeah, financially it wasn't really an issue because the student loan back then was £3,000 a year. So I only had £10,000 to pay off at the end of it or something like that, something quite low. And I made sure that I picked modules that I could fit in around my school day, whether they were the ones I wanted to do or not. I'd kind of pigeonholed in. So I just worked around what I had. Friends helped me with picking up the kids from school and things like that. So, and I just did my homework when they were in bed at night.
So you must have done huge long days.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But I loved it. It wasn't a chore because I was doing part of my degree was in the 3/4 of it was English literature, and then I did a quarter Spanish. So I'd go to extra Spanish classes in the evening, and I think I wanted to get out of home, really. I probably didn't want to be in home. I mean, that marriage ended in divorce, and maybe there's a reason for that.
But it also shows about your and your commitment to yourself. The fact that although you might have voiced it, you had the drive and you were like, right, you had to put the work in. Nothing comes easily.
No, absolutely.
And that's probably partly why this is so important, isn't it? To go, actually, don't give up, but also it doesn't make it easy. You still have to overcome obstacles. You still have to kind of time manage yourself.
Yeah.
And was there kind of a point you go, oh my word, like the psychological weight, I suppose, your mental weight of having to be doing all these roles. What I'm getting to is whether you had to go do experience on top, so you're working and then having to live and breathe what you're learning and then come home and do that. And then was there a point going, when is this going to end? When can I get on with it?
Yeah. I don't look back on it as that. I think I would say that's why it's so important to choose something that you do really, really love, because I just loved having my mind expanded by all these different things that I'd missed out on when I was in my school years, meeting people that were like-minded, and that enjoyment really did drive me. I loved going to university, and one of my biggest regrets that I didn't do that when I was younger, because and I think that is my personality as well, that I am, once I get started on something, I just want to give my very best and I don't want it to end. And I think don't underestimate how far that can get you, because like I say, as I do watch men having an easier trot, and I think I've seen it in interview processes, and I've seen how women can sometimes struggle to get across their best qualities and things like that, whereas a man seems to just find it so much easier to tell you why you should give them the job.
They've got that sales technique, which we're never innately done.
No, and I've seen it in, I don't know if it's a sort of bit something that's particular to education, but we'll do something called a goldfish task, which is you literally on the moment, you give people these tasks that they've got to talk about, and then they go in as if they are in a meeting and they have to bring up what they want to talk about and sort of,
So this is for an interview?
This is part of an interview process. And so 2 women who on paper are far better than the man, but the man is just takes over the meeting, and the women are just, so much more reluctant to get their voice heard. So I can just, you sit there and it's quite painful because you want to give them a shake and say, I know you've got this in you to do this. And that man is finding it far easier than you. And I know that man isn't, when it comes down to actually day to day doing this job, I know that you would be better at it. Or in my opinion, you would be better at it.
We've talked some before, haven't we, in the podcast about we're trying to fit ourselves into a man-made mold rather than as regaining and reshaping what that should look like. And I do wonder whether interviews, whether the application process is very much shaped towards potential gender roles, rather than actually how do we shift that. And actually when you're in positions where you can then think about the interview process, because it's not just about the job role, it's your whole personality that you're employing, right? Your the characteristics, their experience, their life experiences have shaped them to be able to be more adaptable. And women absolutely are more adaptable because that's how we've had to survive. But yet we don't bring that out. And I do wonder whether it goes back to the conversation, is that we're trying to shape into something that we've never been able, that isn't us.
Yeah.
So then how do we reshape that and have the autonomy and the freedom to just allow us to shape that? And I don't think that's a quick answer or quick fix, but it absolutely makes me think about the circle of influence that we've got, and how we keep going those conversations in a way that's positive.
And I think that for me, I found it very, very hard to give feedback about what I had seen in this particular interview and to say that was the wrong appointment in my view to somebody, that's 2 job roles above me. He took it very well and said, you're right. We will think about how we actually do those interviews in the future, because to base everything on an interview where the dice is loaded against females, because as you say, we haven't been brought up to be, or lots of us haven't been brought up to think we can do this, we can do that, of course we can do this, whereas men are much more right from when they're little boys and they've had a different experience. So for me, I think all I can do is give my feedback to people that might listen to me. And generally,
what was that like to actually have that validated, to go, you've got a really good point there?
Yeah, no, I felt really, really pleased, because I did feel quite nervous about doing that, because it isn't easy to sort of have somebody looking at you and you're questioning something that's always been the way it has always been. But afterwards, I felt really good about it. And actually, I've proved my point.
But I think that's interesting as well, because you mentioned earlier on how few women are in the more senior leadership positions, which then means when you are more likely to be in a recruiting context, you're still actually a small voice in a larger combination of selectors, of the decision makers. So as much as at the sort of point that you started to mention it, you had achieved your own career progression, you're still battling for that recognition at that next level in terms of equity. And then you're daring to speak up about gender issues and, as you say, challenging convention.
But I don't know whether I've just been very lucky to have a head teacher that does listen. But from there, he keeps now coming back to me. We're doing a lot of work on misogyny and sexism in school.
Interesting.
He's really keen. I mentioned 21% of heads are female. So he's really there's a 21% club in our local area. So he's really sort of sending out, would anybody like to go to this, to sort of other females in middle leadership roles? He's really sort of taken on board what I have said. We had a conversation in one of my meetings a little while ago where he was asking, do you think maybe opening that up as that leadership role as a job share would help? So we've really been exploring things like that. Yeah, he's really, because he said he was thinking about his wife and how she's now gone into teaching, but because she was bringing up the children, her career path has been, has taken much, much longer than his, because he's been able to go to work and move up the ladder. So he has been really thinking about ways to get more females into leadership roles.
Well, that's both very exciting and also still makes me really sad to feel like we're in a generation where technology is so available. We've got people doing TikToks and videos and teenagers being able to have more of an opportunity to do everything. And yet our generations are still in that position where women are still the ones that almost are being, sacrifice themselves to be able to do that gender roles.
Yeah.
So some things we talked about before, I feel like sometimes it goes full circle. We still get stuck in these same cycles that we automatically expect, or society accepts that women are going to do a certain role.
But it's so clear, isn't it, when you look at it? I think my daughters have all got good jobs now and they've all got degrees and they've done, very, very well. But I'm sure that they will still have babies and give up those jobs to be. And I look back on when I brought them up and they all had a baby born and they all had, little fluffy toys, and they weren't given Lego and Meccano and taught how to sort of think strategically. They were very gendered by their toys and the way that they were brought up.
But do you feel there is an expectation on whose role is it to rechange that conversation? So now you've got an amazing head, it sounds like, that is listening, even though it might be late. There's that opportunity to start shifting the conversation. And sometimes I'm wondering whether the younger generation, boys, are looking up to that and going, oh, and mirroring that to understand that actually they're given opportunities. We don't have men as our allies. Then I wonder how much constant cycle of going against a brick wall we are doing, where actually we need people who are allies to go, I absolutely see your point.
Yeah.
But the battle is to have that voice heard in the first place, to help them understand. Because from that perspective, I can imagine they don't see what we see. They've never experienced it, so how can I?
Yeah.
But actually, in that example you said, it's only because his wife had been going through it that he's had a new perspective.
Yeah.
So it does make me wonder, like, how many conversations needs to be had, or who needs to be coming on board. And it does sound to be people in power, or in a perceived position of power, to have an experience to understand that.
Yeah. I think you're right, although I do see changes, and I mean, I imagine it's going to take, probably generations, but I can sort of name quite a few men at work that take maternity leave or are now part-time and are sharing the parenting with their wives. So I think there is a shift, and that's not even my children's generation. So by the time my children, their generation, maybe that will become much more normalised.
I did read an article the other day that said that there were a lot of working men who were still frightened of asking to take parental leave because of the impact on the careers. We often talk about the gender differences and how sometimes senior women leaders we can perceive as being bitches when they're, trying to assert themselves, whereas we see a man as being manly and assertive. And yet it's interesting, one of the dynamics that we don't necessarily talk about is the pressure on men from other men to be very manly, for example. A lot of men are sometimes anxious to be demonstrating the more feminine traits of wanting to be really closely associated with their children, where they're potentially perceived as sacrificing their career to be fathers.
Yeah. Although I think two of the teachers I was talking about that are part-time workers may fit into that mould that you're talking about. Maybe people do perceive them to be a little bit more feminine, but the other two are very masculine, and they're coming in late because they're dropping their kids off at school and they've taken time off to look after their children. And so, I think there probably is a change coming, and it's men like that you can, they'll be good role models for other men to see that, okay.
Yeah, let's hope it doesn't take generations. I think that's the nice thing, is that we've got social media like we never had before. We need that to be seen in a positive light, to have more conversation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the voice of social media is, with people like Andrew Tate, it is shifting. And I really see that influence in the boys at school. So, we might be taking 2 steps forward, but it could be 1 step back when you've got to you've got to fight against that as well. It's not easy. So I hope it doesn't take generations, but I suspect it might take.
And then in terms of your people that you've kind of worked alongside and your journey, what's been your experience of peers? Are they Have you felt you've been encouraged? Has it been difficult for you? What's been your experience?
It's been a sort of a mixture, really. I think I've had a lot of females that have been very, very encouraging of me, even if it's meant me sort of leapfrogging over them, which is really nice. But then I've also find some females want to knock you down a little bit and bring you down a peg or two, and you have to kind of find that inner voice that says, no, actually, that's not the case, and I am worthy, and question why they feel the need to do that. But I think there is a sort of certainly in teaching, there is a sort of a big band of female support that's really great. And the negative side of it, those people are fewer than the others.
Often says a lot about them.
Absolutely.
That's the thing sometimes about, that's why your network and your support is so important, isn't it? And as women, listen to the voices that are going to be encouraging and empowering, not egoistic in the sense of not listening to reason, but having the right voices to encourage you in order to drown out, because we have our own negative thoughts and critic. We don't need all the rest of it.
Absolutely.
But it does demonstrate that we can be our own. Other people will see our success, or that we not recognise as success. We're just doing our own journey, and we can trip ourselves up because we get disappointed when we see it around us. And actually, what I'm hearing is that we want to be able to change this narrative, but it's also difficult when our own females are also then tripping us up.
What I find I quite like to do is, when I do have that negativity, is I will respond with some positivity, and I will still encourage this particular person to go for that job role, or to do this training or whatever, and just try to sort of not, I don't say lower myself, but have a bit of understanding. You're probably being like that because of this, so I'm not going to, I'm still going to try and encourage you and do what I think is the right thing.
But that's interesting as well, isn't it? Because listening to you speak, you have a confidence in yourself and your leadership abilities and your voice, and making your voice heard in a way that works for you and is comfortable for you. Whenever I find myself in a position where I need to be assertive, I stop myself often. So I forget that I'm naturally assertive when I consciously try and be assertive, and it's more kind of standing up for myself, I guess. That's when I almost lose my confidence to have my voice. And it's interesting, literally a couple of weeks ago, my father, who's quite mature these days, who's quite mature, said, "Now you listen to me, my girl."
Oh.
And I was fuming and responded as I did. Even as I was responding, I was thinking, because it was kind of like, hang on a minute, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm this. And I just remember in that moment thinking, where have I suddenly got that power to respond actively from? So I'd kind of had this non-gendered specific childhood, and yet because of my parents' parenting style, I was still kept in a box, but in a very different way. And at times that's really held me back. So for you to have this evolving confidence, I think is really fascinating. And where do you get that inner confidence and strength from as you've transitioned into your different leadership roles?
That's a very interesting question, because I don't feel very confident, and it's not something that I probably do appear like I've talked about other females. I probably do appear confident, but for example, somebody said to me, like, I don't know if it was a student or another teacher, said I'm really shy, and I said, so am I. And they just laughed out loud at me, because inside I am still a shy, lacking in confidence person, but I obviously don't project that to other people. So I can't really answer where I've got this inner confidence from, because I think my childhood, if you look at my childhood, there are lots of times when I went to 7 different schools when I was growing up, and so I've always had to start afresh. So I did feel, that was a really not very nice experience, always being a new girl, always looking different. But that probably has given me something an internal strength that I've had to deal with, those difficulties, those challenges. But I still carry a sort of I don't feel
Carry a
the
little
way.
girl
Yeah,
inside
exactly
you.
that. Yeah, exactly that. I don't feel. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question really. I haven't got a clue.
But I think that's the authenticity, isn't it? Is that our perceptions versus the reality.
Yes.
And but actually that's the role that we play. That's the mask we need to be.
Yeah.
Going back to all our different roles, you know, we've got a job, we've got being parents, we're caregivers, all these kind of things. And we're naturally adapting to each role because we know the boundaries, we know what we need to play, we know what the rules of the game is, if you like, and we're very, very good at doing that. But as long as it's in our comfort zone, as long as we know what those rules are, as soon as we step out, so if you're thinking about your transitions to a new role, whenever you go into a different role, you have to then adapt to, which is people relations and things like that. So all those life skills that you talked about and things that were difficult, those adversities is what's made you.
Yeah, I suppose that you're dead right there.
Innately, and there's a difference, I think, between life experiences making you stronger as a strength, which you don't recognise because, you know, we're still this inner child, but then it does actually innately come out because we've had those experiences. So therefore we know how the rules of the game is, we know how to play this. You kind of innately adopt these strengths, which helps. But also I think sometimes in those transitions, it helps us to point out the things that other people may notice. So you're noticing people that have got really great strength that they won't see themselves, which then makes you a great leader because it enables you to go, oh, I can really notice that in you. I can really notice that in you. And sometimes that's something that we need more of because actually you don't know what that person needs to hear in terms of encouragement. But transitions, I suppose, you know, for school, everyone's transition, isn't it? Is a scary thing. It's never easy. But those transitions is also that helps us to then adopt those kind of strengths from other people. It makes me curious if there's other people that's kind of not just encouraged you, but kind of held you when you're feeling a bit like, oh, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Imposter syndrome. When we have to be in those positions because that's what our role says. Yeah. But it takes a while until we then start feeling it or ever feel it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I know you sort of sat asking me about people that might have inspired me or people that might have encouraged me, and I've certainly got a friend at work that does that. She will be sending me, you know, affirmations and you've got this every time I've tried to go for another role, and like I say, I've piggybacked her or leapt over her, and so that's even more wonderful that she feels like that about me. But I've also really lucky that I've raised 3 wonderful females that I still live at home with that do that all the time. They will always sing my praises and send me text messages and build me up, which is probably not the way it should be. But I
think
great.
Roles change. You know, I think you know when you're a mum, you know, you can't be their friend. You have to be their parent. And I've got 2 teenagers at the moment, and that's a difficult balance of going, I love you, but I don't like you right now, and having that battle of trying to help them understand why I have to be firm, why I have to be a certain way in this, or have to like pull you up because no one else will. But, you know, and that's a difficult thing. And then you get guilt and you get all this other stuff. But actually the aim is that when they're older, you can become their friend. You can take a step back and you have a different relationship with them, which is beautiful. But it takes a hell of a lot of work and commitment to be able to have the freedom to be able to do that. So the fact that they're encouraging just shows your character and the way that you've had that, because actually they wouldn't innately do that.
No. And actually what you saying that about your, you know, the teenage years, and we're now in a position where we can look back and they can say, do you remember you wouldn't let me wear those high-heeled jelly shoes, or you wouldn't let me wear this, that and the other, and I really hated you for that, and and they're like, but now they're looking at the kind of kids that are wearing stuff like that and saying, I can really see why you didn't want that.
It takes a long time for them to see your point of view, though.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing, I suppose, for you working in education and seeing the generations kind of coming through. For me, I find it fascinating because actually the human nature doesn't change. The culture changes, we can shape that, but we still have a huge responsibility to shape and to have points of, you know, boundary setting and expectations, and school systems is to kind of, my perception is to get a performance out of them. But actually, I think my perception of my own children now has been, it's more about the whole self.
Absolutely.
Because that's what society now needs, whereas before it was very much about exams.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some schools like that, but thankfully I'm at a school, you know, talking about my teenagers where they're just about to start their GCSEs next year, which terrifies me because it makes me feel a bit old. But I think the main thing is having the freedom to go, I can't control that in terms of what their results are going to be, what their exams are. But my responsibility is to shape them into characters that they can start seeing things about, you know, understanding the world around them, because that's more important now about, you know, going to the world of work. How you interact with people, how you notice people, how you don't react to every situation like you are. And that's what I'm quite interested about what do you feel your responsibility and your roles are?
Well, I'm very much, and I don't know if it's because of my upbringing, but I'm very much for the underdog. So in terms of qualifications, yes, they are important, but I'm far more interested in building children's confidence, making sure that they feel as good as the next person. And I think because for myself, I didn't leave with great, you know, probably the sort of results that I should have done, because I had a baby when I was still at school. So because of that, I think I'm very much about the whole person. And I think even now I see, maybe not every day, but so many days I will go out and I will see students and they will be, Miss, you know, and they'll wave at me. And then they might have been the most awful terror at school, but they have actually turned into nice human beings. Maybe they haven't got the best jobs, but they're working and they're, you know, they're nice enough that they will speak to an ex-teacher and they give me the time of day. And I don't think I've come across a single student that I've thought, oh dear, look what happened to you. It's generally,
it's more about their character rather than their
absolutely
profession.
And you know, like I said, I didn't get my qualifications till much later. So if they don't pass their GCSEs, you know, it might seem like the end of the world to them at the time, but it isn't the end of the world to them. And school isn't for everybody. University isn't for everybody. People will find their own path. I think more important is that they are, you know, kind, thoughtful people that will give other people consideration. So yeah, I think school's much more about that, and it's been much more like that since COVID as well, because the sort of mental health problems we're seeing in school now are really quite bad, quite serious a lot of the time. So it's more important that we're looking holistically at students and we're giving them the pastoral care as well as the academic care that, you know.
So I think that's interesting as well. We were talking earlier on about peer pressure and social media, and also the fact that there is perhaps family pressure on people to do well because the parents might have been that influenced in their own education, but also sort of bringing the third thread of that together about children's mental health, seeing an increase in children experiencing challenges with mental health so early on, and so much weight, and it seems kind of like layer on layer on layer of pressure on young children who have the potential to be whatever they want and often become different. You know, there's a lot of pressure on children from their own families. There's a lot that they put on them, but there's added pressure and the volume of pressure. We had pressures when we were growing up, but I have no concept of them being anything like what children are going through.
No. And I think that the main problem is that it's inescapable now for children. They, you know, we might have had pressure when we were at school and going out in the evening or whatever, but now it is constant. It's relentless. It's just they are constantly on their phones. I mean, we've got a phone ban in school, but the kids go to the toilet and they will take their phone out, and then there will be something by the time they've, you know, an hour later, there's been a fight because someone's said something or other about somebody or other. And there are so many issues around social media that I don't think it can be exaggerated enough. It is, you know, it's really, really difficult for them. And like I say, it starts from such a young age. I mean, I think people give their kids mobile phones when they are, you know, in primary school now, don't they? Not realising that they're going to be, from the moment they wake up, they're going to be looking at something on social media and they're going to be comparing themselves unfavourably to somebody else on social media. And they're going to be carrying that around with them all day. And they're going to be going to bed at night looking at social media and wishing they were this and wishing they were that. And that is, I think that's particularly hard for girls, but boys in a different way as well. And like I said before, I think that's why Andrew Tate's made such an impact. And of course, did you watch Adolescence as well?
No, I haven't watched that yet. How did you find that?
Well, I actually only watched the first 2 episodes. I found that quite painful. I will go back to it at some point, but it's, a young boy that's, been so influenced by people like Andrew Tate that are telling them negative things about females, and obviously had led to a really tragic end. So I think that's been quite impactful on a lot of people. But I think unless you're working in a school, I don't think you can quite
comprehend it.
You can't. And I've recently been on a course with some primary school teachers, and they were asking, but does this happen very often? Because we've got things like girls sending nudes to other people, and they'll be having, sex with the boyfriend, and then the boyfriend will share this video that they've taken, and it it's absolutely, and I know that sounds really shocking, but literally that happens on, if not a weekly basis. It is so prevalent. So what is happening that our girls think that is what they have to do to
their value, their sense of worth? Yeah.
And I mean, I know I'm old now, and I certainly remember wearing short skirts at school, but now girls, it's really hard to get across to them why you shouldn't actually be able to see your bottom when you're walking down the corridor. They just don't get it. They'll just, why are you sexualizing me, miss? Why are you looking anyway? And that kind of thing, that they feel that they have to wear clothing like that. I don't know.
But that ties into what you were saying earlier on about discussions that you've had with your adult daughters now, when they were referencing what they were like as children and their initial response, and they get your perspective now that they're that much older. And of course, the thing that you're, I guess, trying to do in a school is to get people whose character and even their brains are still sort of forming to understand the perspective of somebody who's older, when, their brain development is saying, I should challenge authority, I should do this, I should do that. And as much as you're never going to pigeonhole somebody by saying, should we be able to see your bottom, underneath your skirt? There's this tension, isn't there, between, I'm saying this because I've got experience, I know the risks, and yes, I'm in a position of authority, but I'm looking out for you, versus the person that you're saying that to, and the risks, not only in terms of the immediate risks of potentially having a photograph of their boobs going around their friend's social media, but potentially shaping their lives for decades to come.
Absolutely.
And it's just one simple thing about, is your skirt too short, And
the other layer of that, of course, is that when you will say to their parents their skirt's too short, and then you get the parent saying, I don't think it's too short. What, this, that, and the other. And, I think another impact of COVID is that parents have become very different. They're very protective of their children. They're less supportive of teachers in general. That is a generalisation. Of course, there are some still that are, but very much want to make their children happy. And, maybe they think that's boosting their ego if they're wearing these short skirts and they're feeling good about themselves. So they will argue the case about that. So there's all these sort of layers of issues trying to deal with something as simple as wearing a school uniform.
But I think there's the other element of, we didn't have social media, so therefore we could make mistakes. It's not like we've never done anything or ever did that in our generation. I think it's that the big difference is it doesn't impact us because no one either saw it,
absolutely,
or it was talked about and nobody else was part of it. Now we have a worldwide system where everybody gets to hear about something, whether it's true or not, and truth is twisted, and no one really knows what real truth is. And so we're constantly battling, and we're trying to keep up with the reality of, yes, it's social media, but then there's the impact of whose voice are they listening to. And so teaching and parents used to be their most influence. And at a certain age, I think it's around 11, 12, their circle of influence and who they listen to is not you. So actually it's everybody else. And that's where it becomes more scary. And I think potentially that's why it's the influence of going, I just want an easy life, I want you to be okay, I want to do that. The challenges of being able to sit with that and going, you won't understand this now, but this is why I need you. This is why it's so important to for me, trying to encourage them to find something that they can do where they have routine, where they can, I mean, they're not interested in it at all. But, I used to say boys brigade and guides and all that kind of thing. That's gone out the window,
Absolutely.
There's no other kind of, not regiment, but other areas to kind of get their other encouraging voices and elements from. And school's probably the only structure of their day where they have some kind of other adult influence that isn't on their phone for a period of time. And that pressure for schools, I can't imagine what that's like, because everyone's basically trying to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
You're doing that as a parent, but you're doing that as a teacher too. And then you've got the governors and you've got everybody else basically telling you what the results they want, and the pressure's intense. So I suppose in one sense, is it worth it? Here's my question. And then what's your kind of key insights out of all of the conversations we've had and looking about it? What would be something that you would say, like, this is what I've really learned, or this is what I'd really want to say? So then, what's your key insights really from all of that?
Okay, so there's quite a lot that you've...
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Do you mean, is it worth it, the effort of putting into teaching or into trying to move up the leadership?
Just your own journey.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, each step of the way I have felt very strongly about. So a role comes up. So I think I could probably do that job role. What's the impact if I don't do that job or don't go for it? Well, somebody else is going to go for it, and I might not think that they're doing a very good job, but I'm still going to have to work for them. This way I can have some influence and I can, maybe have some impact. So that was one thing that drove me there, and absolutely that was the right thing, and I did have impact. The next step up to sort of senior leadership was that I saw somebody else having a go at doing some race equity work that was on the senior leadership team, and I just thought, that's not right. I know that I can do a better job there. I think I can do a better job there. So I just went out on a limb, asked my head if I could get involved, and he said, wow, we'd really love it if you would apply for the job, and if you did, you could take on this project. So, and I have had an impact there as well. So it's been very much worth it. And if I think, because as a mixed race person, my experiences at school, feeling on the outside, I just feel if I can just make, one or two people not feel like I did growing up, then 100% it's worth it. And it's been far bigger than that. I've had lots of people come back to me, and we just recently had a day where everybody was celebrating their culture. And it was the most fantastic experience to see people dressing up in their cultural clothing. We had a huge fashion show where I can't tell you what a phenomenal success it was. And we literally had people trying to get into this fashion show. We had to turn them away from coming to watch it. We sort of didn't sell tickets, but asked for interest, and we'd only got about 150 people that wanted to come and see it. As it turned out, there were about 700 people that were trying to get into this fashion show, with everybody their pride in their culture and the feedback I got about it. So that was a very proud moment. And it was, and like I say, if there can be that feeling from people that they do fit in, why shouldn't they be proud of their heritage? Maybe they're, maybe they look a little bit different to other people, but they have got as much value as the next person. So,
And do you feel, just going back to social media and how young people, and particularly young women, are defining themselves at the moment, do you feel that there is more of a light at the end of the tunnel for people to really discover themselves and embrace who they are and their potential?
I really hope so. And I think, maybe we're focusing on the negative side of social media, but there are so many influencers out there that are telling girls, so what if you're not this size, this shape, look how I look. And you just have to hope that girls will find that niche and actually focus on people like that, rather than the stick thin model sorts. But it is difficult, isn't it? I know even my girls at their ages, they're in their 20s and one of them's just 30, still very much can feel very despondent when they see a post that's I don't know, impacted them in some way and made them feel lesser than. So I don't want to seem like, it's all doom and gloom, but I really don't know where the whole social media thing is gonna end up with students. We're going to bring in like lockers for phones. So hopefully that will give just kids a chance to
some respite.
Just some respite, yeah. Because when we first brought in a phone ban, it seemed to work really well, and we noticed children were talking to each other and playing cards and things like that. And now they seem to be sort of they found a way around the phone ban, and they're a bit more sort of sneaky about it. Just going back to something you said about the fact that we don't have girl guides or brownies, although we do, but the girls that go to those are very, what's the word I would use? They're quite square. The other kids wouldn't want to be like them. And I think that's another problem with females and males, isn't it? That the males they've got football, and they've just got so many physical things that they can do at lunchtimes and break times and outside activities. And then for girls, we've got such a struggle with PE. They don't want to do it. It's just not on the same level as the boys. So they just have less out there unless they're a very sporty girl or they're a girl that likes dance or drama. There just doesn't seem to be the same chance to just go and have a kick about with the ball with your friends. And maybe the girls' football becoming much more prominent, that might change. But I think my heart sinks when a girl tells me she wants to be, an eyelash technician or something, when I think you've got, not that there's anything wrong with eyelash technicians, but when somebody has got a bit more about them than maybe lowering their sights to
maybe that's the opportunity. There's so many opportunities in the school system.
Yeah.
From similar to what happened in the NHS, where they realised the mental health of staff was, people leaving the profession quicker than they were coming to it. And they started thinking about staff wellbeing. They started really investing in that. And I know they're doing a lot more in schools around recognising people sooner. But there's that peer-to-peer influence, isn't there? And there's so many opportunities. Something that just came to mind when you're talking. So obviously my teenage daughter is a teenager, and she came home, and it was the one time for a long time that I felt, wow, okay, maybe I've had some influence there, because one of the boys at school was mimicking a friend who's got a crooked nose, and she just turned around to him and said, what's wrong with your face and your personality? Like, who dragged you up?
Yeah.
And I just was like, audacity to her. But she was like, she had that insight to have such a quick comeback.
Yeah.
And not only protect her friend, but also go, it's not like we don't know, we don't care.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? And I think for that really formed them as a unit of having, you're never going to be perfect. You can't be perfect, but actually it's in the uniqueness of who you are that makes you that person. And we definitely have an opportunity. And I suppose my learning is that you've always got opportunities. You just got to find the right moments to be able to continue those shaping of then, what's this opportunity? So that culture thing's incredible, because it wasn't about, we're going to teach you about culture. It was like celebrate.
Yeah.
And it is about the narrative and how we utilize social media to be able to be something that we can bring interest in. But instead of thinking of that, we go, actually, what's the opportunity here? What's the opportunity here? And I think there's so much to be said about utilising what interests them. And in school, you've got a massive opportunity. You just have to have some creativity. And when you've gone through different journeys and you've talked us through your kind of pathway and the way that you see things, you've got an amazing continued opportunity to shape that and bring along people with you.
Yeah.
No, so you're not on your own. So, I'm really excited about what's to come, I think.
Yeah. It does feel that you think, all right, okay, I could do this and I could do that. And then you have to remember fundamentally, I'm a teacher as well, and I have got to teach lessons, but there are so many other exciting things that you can get involved in. As I say, the pastoral side of things is huge. It's just there's not enough hours in a day for everything.
So talking in terms of sort of influencing and leading and helping to shape, and particularly because we're talking about essentially young teenagers, but young people in secondary school particularly, what sort of insights, words of wisdom, what takeaways do you think would you want people to take on board?
For me, I think it is that have that belief in yourself and don't sell yourself down. If you see an opportunity, go for it, because you've got nothing to lose. And if that opportunity doesn't work out, there might be another one round the corner. I'm just thinking of, in terms of parenting, I could think of plenty of things I could say. I think that teachers are not going to solve all of these problems that parents would like us to solve. But ultimately, we do really care about the students and we are doing our very best for them. But it should very much be a partnership with parents. And even if they don't agree with us, try not to let your child see that, because that brings in a lack of respect for teachers into the workplaces, into the school place as well. And takeaways, I would say, fake it till you make it, because I feel like I'm still faking it. I think it was Michelle Obama. I was listening to her on audiobook, and she said very much the same thing as me. Like, she felt like, I don't have a seat at that table. That's not for me. And, you know, the majority of the time you very much do have a seat at that table. And in fact, it's some of those people that are seated at the table that have got no business being at that table. You know, yeah, certainly for me, it's, you are as good as the next person.
I'm probably misremembering the quote. If you look round the table and don't feel that there is a seat available for you, go and get your own and bring it with you. And I just sort of think that's a really great way to, look at things.
We have a company that come into school to talk about gender-based violence, and it's very much about what you were saying, calling things out. So don't listen to derogatory comments about females and think, that's cool, I'll just go along with it. Actually stop and say, can I ask why you said that? What were you thinking? And make people actually question. And, that we're very much like that with Andrew Tate. We've been told, do not say, what do you want to listen to that fool for? It's actually, oh, okay, that's interesting. What makes you think that? What makes you believe what he's saying there? And is there evidence for that? And things like that. It's very much trying to make them inquire about things rather than just blindly believing what they read.
So having that curiosity to actually, again, goes back to fact and opinion and truth, isn't it? Of questioning what you're absorbing and what is truth these days. But actually, if you're taking on everything you're hearing, you're not actually then shaping your own curiosity, your own mindset. And in the education system, it's all about questioning.
Yeah,
it's all about being curious and being okay to do that. And you're talking about, it sounds like you're obviously really into your literature and learning. And something that we always do, isn't it, is ask for book recommendations. I'm not someone who loves to read, but I love to learn and ask questions. And I'm just curious whether there's any books that come to mind, or articles or things that you would go to, know this is something that I'd really recommend.
So many. I'm really slacking on my reading at the moment. But my children are massive readers, so they pass down lots of things to me. So fiction, I'm currently reading something called Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I quite like books that follow people through their lives, their life's journey, and that's a really, really good one. I'm also listening to an audiobook. I'm not going to remember the name of the lady now, Katrina somebody, but I saw her at a conference and it is fantastic, and it's called Poor, and it's about her journey from being brought up to her parents were heroin addicts, and she was talking about the impact that some teachers had on her at school. So while some teachers saw her as, coming into school with nits and smelling of urine and never having a pen, other teachers actually saw beyond that and thought, what's happening here? And she actually, because of these two teachers that had such an impact on her, she did become a parent, a sort of a teenage parent, and problems with drugs as well herself, but pulled herself out of that. And now she is a teacher herself. She also does some counselling, and she's got a PhD, and she goes around delivering a message to, at conferences for teachers around the country. So I could definitely recommend that. I just wish I could remember her name.
We'll put it all in the comments, won't we?
Yeah.
We'll make sure there's resources. But
fantastic.
It's been, that's the thing, isn't it? When you start a conversation, you just want to kind of do that forever, but your time is precious. And
we want to go out and get a glass of wine.
That's it.
Talking, there you go.
Just really thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and your experience. I'm sure, for us, it's always an honour to be able to have someone being sharing their story, and for our listeners just being able to impact it by storytelling. Look at me now, storytelling.
Started on the roll already.
Because it's important, isn't it? It's being able to see the truth behind the exterior and being able to be honest about that. It's never so smooth and it's never straightforward and doesn't just go A to B. So it's been an absolute honour. So thank you for coming.
You're very welcome. It's been lovely talking to you both.
Brilliant. Thank you, Audrey. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Pegsy. Thank you, SJ.
Thank you.
Soundstroke.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed, please download the podcast on any of your platforms that you listen on. Share, like and follow so others can enjoy. Until next time, keep your heels high and your standards higher.